Welcome to the December 17, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This meeting is now called to order. Commissioner Carpenter will lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge. Thank you.
Please rise. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our city. We thank you for each other. And mostly, we thank you for this season this year as we are pressing into Advent. Give your blessings to this meeting and those who are in attendance. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. A move to approve the minutes, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. We do not have a consent agenda this evening, so we'll go directly to our one regular agenda item. The purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the board. Tonight is the first of two public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The board also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed will be: the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order. First the applicant, then staff, and then the general public, and that would include those that are in support and in opposition to the request. If you're part of a large group with common interests, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson rather than restating the same information. When addressing the board, please begin by stating your name and address and try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. And after each public hearing is closed, the board will vote on the request. Zoning requests and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on January 9, 2020. Thank you. Our regular agenda item A. Staff, will you please read it for us?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
A public hearing will be held to consider application Z1912, filed by Mehan Shabahani, requesting a rezone from single family 5, to heavy commercial for the south 40 feet, lots 16, 17, and 18, block 28, Northcutt Heights, located on the south side of Northcutt Avenue, east of High Street.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? If you will, Art, please come to the microphone. Introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
All right. Hi, my name is Mehan Shabahani, and my property address is 109 West Marshall. So I have a mechanic shop repair at 109, and we kind of have an issue with the customer parking and our staff parking. So we need to extend a little bit parking. That's why I went to the city and they kind of recommend me to purchase all this tree land behind me and then come and ask for approval so we can extend our parking lot. So that's what I did. After I purchased the land, I went to city and then they said, no, we have a problem with rezoning it because some neighbors are not happy with the result. And so I talked to the city and I said, well, if you come in with the idea of putting the fence in there, like 8 foot high, so that way you're not interfering with some of them. They weren't happy with seeing my car over their park as a parking lot. So right now I'm here to ask to rezoning portion of my property from the residential to the commercial, which is about 40 feet. And then we're going to put the fence up in the front of our property line so that way it won't bother the neighbor. And I guess that is the whole thing. I'm here. That's my plan is. So.
All right. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Shabahani. Thank you, sir. Staff?
So the applicant is requesting a rezone for the south rear 40 feet of the lots 16, 17, and 18 of Northcutt Heights, located on the south side of Northcutt Avenue. The applicant does own a business just adjacent to this property shown here. My bad. Give me a second. And he wants to extend his parking area across right here. And so he does not have enough parking space as it is for all of his vehicles that he's working on, and he'd like to use the lots to purchase and pave that area for extra parking. After receiving opposition from the neighbors about converting the entire lot into parking area, it was decided that they would only request rezoning the south 40 feet of these lots. In order for the parking area to be constructed, the applicant must rezone this area to a zoning district that allows for a parking lot. Staff finds this proposed zoning change is consistent with surrounding uses. Staff recommends approval of this request. We would be happy to answer any questions.
Or the
The
one
prop-
thing, go ahead. What put those in? For the lots that he owns, could they ever be used for SF? Are those feasible off the, let me go back to the things that off Northcutt. Were the lots usable, or will that just stay a greenbelt? So later on, somebody put a house behind the parking lot.
So with the current zoning, it is single family 5. With the current lot dimensions being 50 by 100, it would not meet these code for single family 5 dwelling based on the lot dimensions and square footage of our requirements.
What would the new lot dimensions be?
So it would, according to a survey, I'm going to rely on that one.
I
As
think
shown,
they would end up being 100.
it'd be 50 by 100.
Yeah, they're 140 by 50 now. If you take that 40 feet off, then it would be
100.
a remaining of 100 by 50. So
What is SF
SF 5,
5?
So 5, I believe
I think it's 5,000. Yeah, that would be right at the minimum.
So it would work.
be, yeah.
What is that triangle on the
So
northeast corner?
So the city still owns that corner piece right there.
Go back to there. Yeah,
I'll
when
go back to the aerial.
When that CVS was developed next door, the alleyway went perpendicular with Marshall Avenue. And as part of the rezoning and development of that, CVS was required to purchase right-of-way and rebuild and reroute the alleyway. Go back to the aerial. Yeah, that one. So you can see right there, there's actually some vehicles that are parked in that alleyway now that runs perpendicular there. But there's a great difference between the drive-throughs for the pharmacy there. There's a wall there, and then that alleyway that comes down south that was relocated, and then that triangle piece is kind of a corner clip for that radius that was purchased and dedicated to the city for that alleyway.
Now, that alleyway does not come all the way to 80, does it?
No, it does not come to 80. It comes down and then ties in with the original alleyway that goes all the way to Center Street. It's kind of hard to see
I see.
on that eastern portion with the vegetation in the aerial, but it does, I believe, go all the way.
Is that alleyway dedicated?
Yes.
On the alleyway part there, where the cars are parked, there's no fencing goes along going north, is there?
So there's currently no fencing on this property currently, and the applicant would have to put up a buffer fence required, a 6-foot privacy screened fence from here, just because it's still a residential use.
So from where the corner of the triangle is going north, there's no fence there, right?
There's no fence.
Correct.
Would that be paved parking?
It would have to be, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, we will ask for the general public's. Anyone that would like to speak in support of this agenda item, please come to the microphone.
Come on up, it's fine. Yeah, I think they're just any public
It's all right.
comment. Yeah.
We'll combine it. There's a small group.
No, very small. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Graham, and I live at 109 Northcutt. which is, okay, thank you, which is directly across the street from this property. And I'm representing the homeowners on this street and the residents. We are against this being changed from residential to heavy commercial. That is including lots 16, 17, 18, and block 28. The owner plans to put a used car lot on this property, which would make it have more traffic and noise. You can put up a fence if you want to. That's not going to help deter the noise or the traffic that he's going to have there. We all own our homes on this street. Some of us have lived there for over 50 years. We try to maintain our homes, keeping it presentable, the lawn looking good, and we don't want a used car lot in our quiet neighborhood. So we ask you again that you do not approve this request and leave our neighborhood quiet as it should be and has been for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham.
Madam Chairman, I'm confused. We talked about a storage for auto repair, and we talked about a used car lot. Those are two different animals completely.
We need clarification.
We have to.
From
We
the
have no
applicant.
choice.
Can I explain?
Shirley, please come back to the microphone.
Yes, basically, I have a permit for the sales and service. I do repair and sales. So that's why, I'm having a really big issue with the parking lot. And the parking lot I'm trying to extend, I just want to park the car as a customer car or some of my car I'm trying to sell. So it's a combination business as a car lot and a repair shop already. And I have a permit for that from the city.
And the additional 40 feet that you're requesting a rezoning on is for what purpose?
For just the parking. Just park the car. Only.
Cars that are for sale or cars that are being serviced?
I'm planning to put the car just for sale. Those cars ready, just gonna park in there and sit there. There is no noisy, no traffic. I have a portion of my property which is faced to the 80. We have entrance in there, and then I have an opening in the back also. So, most of our traffic coming from 80 because our customer coming through and basically use the front property entrance.
That was going to be my next question. How does this 40 feet have access, ingress and egress? How does it?
Well, it's two-way from the back alley and from the front of my property. We have basically two openings in the back of my building and front of my building. If I may,
So it's the alleyway and then off of 80, is that correct?
This is my opening right here, and this is open right here. There's no fence around, and this is kind of my property, like mine. And there's an opening over here as an entrance and also exit too. But we have an opening here, and sometimes we use the back alley to just get out. So, and this 40 foot we try to put added to our property right here. We just put some car we are just ready for sale.
Can you come back over to the microphone, please?
Yes,
There.
Okay.
So it strictly would be just the parking for the car, either for sale. Most of them the car for sale.
On the 40.
Should be selling cars off of that lot?
Yes, I do right now. I don't have a permit for that.
Where we're seeing the cars in the picture, all these cars are in transition and for sale.
Yeah, and to kind of explain, because if you've not been back there, it's kind of hard to see. The front of this building, most of it, we don't have a picture, I apologize. This is all building storefront, but there is his main driveway comes in right here, and from this line right here to the east, all of this is open air underneath that roof. So it's basically covered parking. That's where people pull in. They can park there. And then the backside right here is open and ties into this rear parking lot area. And so if you're coming there, you'll pull in off of 80 through here. There's some parking or you'll keep going back through this way and hit the alleyway. And then, so this is, you can see right here, this is the alleyway, and then it turns, and then this portion right here is part of the alleyway. And I think that's one of the issues, is that they've been parking in the alley, and we visited with them about that, which has kind of necessitated them needing more land to have both parking for cars for sale and customer parking. I think they're out of room for that, so.
The alley that's going east and west, is that asphalt or is that concrete? Or can that be used as commercial entrance and egress?
I believe this portion is paved. This portion right here it's not new. Well, this other one's not new either, but it's newer, and so it's pretty weathered. They've been using it for. They've been able to use it for rear access to their property. I don't know that this property right here has direct link into it, but they have used it for rear access for a number of years.
Nobody used that, excuse me, nobody used that back alley because the customer, the first neighbor right there, they use it as a parking, and plus they put the basketball post in there. So basically to block the driveway, back alley, nobody used it for years. And the grass, everything grow in there, and nobody use it right now.
Yeah, I think as you get down here, because there's a house right here, I think as you get closer, I think it is less traveled.
You cannot move to it.
So then, in reality, he really would only have one entrance exit? Or
No, you can
you
come.
can still go out that other alley?
Yeah, you can still come
Okay.
and go through this way. And
Down where those cars are parked, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they would have to use this in conjunction with this. It wouldn't be able to really operate independently because along this black line right here and right here, they would have to put up a fence, at least a 6-foot fence, and I think he mentioned an 8-foot fence to do screening from the rest of the property in the area.
The street, the house across the street.
But that is a deeded alleyway.
Correct.
What's the difference
So
in
those
commercial?
things that are built in that alleyway theoretically are in code violation. Somebody mentioned a basketball
Yeah,
court.
yeah, and that's what I was looking at the aerials and the Google drive-bys earlier, and it does look like this house is parking there, and if there is a structure there, then that's something that we'll address because they should be keeping it free. And I know we've talked to him about abandoning this alley, and he can speak more to that. I think he's tried to chase that down. If he's the owner of both sides of the alley, he can abandon that, but we don't want to abandon portions of it. We want to abandon the whole thing. And so I think it's my understanding that there might be some opposition from these two structures right here from abandoning it.
Can I ask one question? What's the difference between heavy commercial and commercial?
Heavy commercial allows more of the commercial type activities by right. Light commercial was created as a zoning category where some of those uses could be allowed by right, but many of them could be allowed with a specific use permit. It's kind of like a transitional zoning between general retail and heavy commercial. So all of your automotive repair, automotive sales, anything with outdoor display, outdoor storage is going to have to be in heavy commercial zoning.
But once again, once we make it heavy commercial, to be honest, anything
Correct.
could possibly be put there, not just a used car lot. Someone could put
Correct.
anything.
And
Whereas commercial sounds like to me you could special purpose it specifically to say a parking lot.
from the staff perspective, looking at that, I think that's one of the reasons we kind of suggested that instead of rezoning the entire property, try to get that away from the residences. And currently, there's no fence here. There's no fence required. So all of this backside is wide open. So we felt like, with that it could solve a couple of problems by allowing them more room to park cars that are already kind of there in the alleyway. and then we would get a fence, which is currently not there. And so we were kind of like, well, regardless of what's allowed in heavy commercial, we see this all the time. We have lots of residential areas next to commercial, with the screening and buffering that's required, that should be sufficient. But there again, that's just one perspective. That's where we have to, we come to the public hearing and really look at all of the issues of that area to determine is it truly appropriate in this situation. So
Michael, this new recommendation for commercial will be the same commercial that his building currently is?
correct. It would be the same zoning.
It would be the same pink zoning.
Yeah, let me go back. Yeah, so here is the zoning map, and so all of Marshall, there we go. All of Marshall is the heavy commercial, pinkish red. Part of the CVS is general retail, part of it is commercial. And then you can see down center, there's all of this down to the point is commercial. So this is definitely an area that's a transitional area. And we see this a lot where, these lots were originally platted as probably residential lots. And as we see these frontage businesses needing to grow, they're growing backwards, which is street frontage into a neighborhood. And so those are the things that we look at. Okay, how do we, is that appropriate? Is that full transition? Is that appropriate now? Or are there other things that need to occur before it becomes appropriate? Do we have appropriate safeguards with screening, buffering, lighting and such? And we do have many of those safeguards in our code as minimums, and trying to mitigate those. So,
Can I ask one more? Ma'am? Yes. Could you show me where the residents, I know I can look at this, the trees block my view, but the most complaint, is it the 6th block of houses? I see his, so we're represented about, here it says, here, there we go. There's a house here facing this direction.
The next one.
I'm just trying to get a perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's across the street.
It's on Northcutt itself.
It's on the north side of Northcutt, not the south side of Northcutt, correct, ma'am? The north side.
One more that way. No. Just move your mouse. Oh, right there.
This is hers.
It's showing up.
Sure, come to the microphone, please.
Sorry, trying to get
I
the.
just didn't get perspective of where she lived and the whole concept.
Okay. I believe her house is this house right here that is directly to the north of the property.
It is directly.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I believe they have,
And her front
really
door.
it's a mirror image of that property. I believe they have this this larger block here is what's under their control, being their house right here. So in perspective. And then there's, I believe, 3 houses right here. And then I believe there's a house here, and a house here.
Yes, Mrs. Graham, go ahead.
What I am concerned about is him putting that heavy commercial. He can put anything he wants to there. And if afterwards he gets this granted and he decides to sell that to somebody, wants to keep them from coming on down, so well, let's just go on down to Northcutt and make that heavy commercial also. And in doing so, he has cars parked up there. They are being worked on outside, because I have seen them do that outside. These are used cars. They're not new cars. And he's parking his cars in the alley, and on the other end, it is blocked. But that needs to be addressed at another time. Right now, I do not want to have it where he has access to do anything he wants on this property, and we, as residents, we're just going to have to live with it. I've lived there for 50 years, never had that much problem with anything, with any problem whatsoever. And I don't want to start having a problem with it. because there will be noise. You can't block noise with a fence, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham. Mr. Shabani, I have a question. How old is your business? How long have you been in business at that site?
This business actually, right now in this location is 4 years old. I had other business in Dallas. We moved from Dallas here.
All right. And there is some tree cutting going on that some of those lots. What's happening there?
Well, the thing is, a lot of the tree was close to the north cut. It was going through the power line, and I called the power line company, SIPCO. They come and trim it. They put it on. They're supposed to take it with them. They didn't. And then I call and ask them why you didn't. Since you have a chopper and the man and truck, everything with them, they said, well, this is a maintenance schedule, and we'll not pick it up after ourselves. So I have to call city, and they come and pick it up. And I'm still working on it. And some of them was a little bit far from the road. When they come and pick it up, they couldn't get to it, so they have to come back for a second time because we move it in the front.
But you're not just generally cutting down all the trees.
I don't need to cut no trees, and I have never worked outside except just going to clean those trees because
just clean it up.
Yeah, I have it inside mechanic shop, and it's always closed. I never work outside.
All right, we have more questions?
Just one. I got one. You go ahead.
Michael, on the Walgreens side, it does have a fence going down on that west side of the alley.
Yes. Yes.
And so that fence there would be similar to the fence that he'd be putting around the side of it, which would give uniformity, right?
Yeah, so you wouldn't have a fence across the alley, but at this point right here, you would have, by our code, minimum 6 foot,
Right.
all the way down, and then along this boundary as well, anywhere adjacent to residential zoning. Even though he owns the remainder of that, it would be from zoning to lesser intent zoning.
Okay, my question is, I see the request. I see her point also that 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, he owns the land north of that we have just zoned commercial. He could, in fact, different crowd, different people, ask for that to be completely commercially zoned, and that's where your concerns are, ma'am, that in the future, there's nothing we could interject into this meeting, or I'm asking, are there opportunities to influx to protect the neighbors and still satisfy both groups of the party? I'm asking you, Michael, is there something we could write into this particular meeting?
No, because zoning is not set in stone. It's always subject to a public process to be changed. So, the only exceptions would be like deed restrictions, and even then, deed restrictions can be waived in the future through processes. There's not really anything that we could establish that would say that this other property in the future they couldn't ask, or Now, the positive thing is there's always that public process. So if we rezoned this portion and moved forward, and he wanted to do something in the future on that residual, it would have to come back. It would have to be rezoned. It would have to go through the two public hearing process. Again, it's all based on the merits. We do always look at adjacency. That is one thing, because you can't do spot zoning or hopscotch tile zoning. So that is one of the key things that we look at, but it doesn't make it a have to. It doesn't automatically determine that it can be rezoned just because it's adjacent. That's why we have the public process to look at the very specific cases to see if now's the time for that transition or not.
But at some point in history, the 5 lots on Northcutt running west to east from High Street have been rezoned, correct?
I would imagine so.
Because you could not put a drugstore on a SF4 or 5 or whatever Northcutt Street was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's retail. Some of it's retail.
But I mean,
But it's still some point.
It's still
At one point, there was an SF5.
It went from Blue to Crosshatch.
Yeah, and it's a catch-22 because we have to look at, are we going to see new residential development on these lots or not? By rezoning this or developing a portion of that, is that going to determine that we can or can't redevelop the residual into residential. There's a lot of things that, that we kind of look at. But
The 50 by 100 still falls in the SF5,
correct.
so that could be
So
developed.
somebody could, yeah.
Single family.
And I just would like to reiterate, Mr. Shabani, that I think it would be a really good idea if you got out your measuring stick down to the inch and just made really sure that you had those 3 properties that are going to continue to face Northcutt, that they have 100 feet from front to back, so that, say, for example, you wanted to put those up as residential lots for sale, Ms. Graham could buy them and protect her property if that's what she wanted.
I understand.
But they would have to stay 50 by 100 to stay. And so I think you're really fortunate there to be able to take off the back portion, have it be commercial, and still have 3 remaining residential lots in that neighborhood.
And I think he did have a surveyor set those, so it is based on an on-the-ground survey, and those stakes were staked by the surveyor, so.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
You own all those, you own those 100 by 50s?
Yes.
Okay.
More questions?
Stipulation would be a 6-foot fence is the minimum?
Yes.
That's in there, yeah.
I thought he recommended an 8. I thought he
I
said he was
thought we
doing an 8.
recommended an 8.
He did.
I'm just making sure.
He did. I mean,
Do we
y'all are
need
welcome
to,
to.
do we need to put that within the thing that his recommendation, we would
Yes.
need to state 8 for it to be in ours?
Yeah, you can make it a condition of
on your
motion.
motion.
Okay.
And they'll also, so not just the screening, but they will have to provide some buffering. So we're rezoning 40 feet is the request, but there's a percentage of that right up next to that line that will have to be left undeveloped. He won't be able to put parking lot right up next to that fence because there's a buffering area that he has to be from that adjacent zoning as well.
He has landscaped that part. Right?
Yes.
About how much buffer area are you,
I said 10 feet.
10 feet?
It's really based on building height. So with there being no building, just being parking, it's going to be whatever our minimum is. And I want to say it's like 5 or 6 feet.
So it would have some foliage on it in addition to the fence?
Yeah, it'll be required to have at least trees and ground cover in it.
All
Yeah,
right.
because based on our landscape ordinance, since that's newly developed area, he'll have to do landscaping for that area that he's going to pour in concrete, developing. And so the tree and shrub count will go in that buffer area. So it'll be an L-shaped buffer.
One last thing, we're taking trees, we pass this, we take away vegetation, we bring concrete. With concrete comes rain, comes water, comes flood conditions. Are those something yet to be determined and worked out by the city that would be required? I don't want to see this become a parking
Yes.
lot, the people next door to be flooded out because now we have no vegetation to retain the water.
Correct. He'll have to hire an engineer to do his drainage calculations
Okay.
and
It's a
ensure
set
that.
thing, there's no getting around that.
Correct. That's with any commercial development, an engineer will have to review it. During the residential stuff, that's done in the subdivision development, so each individual builder doesn't do that. But with commercial development, they'll have to do that each time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments from anyone? Hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. Thank you. The chair calls for a motion.
Okay, we make a motion for approval based on, once again, I'd like for you to rephrase it, and could we use your verbiage to be what I'm looking for in the taller fence? And I'm just, tell me
Sure.
what to say.
So would you, if a
If
typical
someone here
motion-
wanted to speak, what would they say if we wanted the 8-foot fence?
It sounds like they'd want to make a motion for approval with the stipulation that they have to put a minimum 8-foot wood or masonry fence on the perimeter adjacent to the residential areas. So you just make that motion stipulating an 8-foot fence.
And we don't have to say anything about the buffer because that's already a given.
That's already a given.
That helps with
correct?
the noise.
Unless you want
Flood
something.
drainage comes from engineering, so that's covered.
Of course, any lighting that they would do, we have requirements that that would have to be
Downshielded.
downshielded away from the residential areas.
Like we always do.
But yeah, we have a lot of those things. We have minimum standards in our code already. But if you want to put above and beyond, then you may make that as a stipulation.
Shirley, would you like to come to the microphone? If the public hearing is closed.
Now, come on, because they want to hear you on TV.
But we got the public hearing is closed.
I just wanted to ask, if you all approve this, would this go to council afterwards?
Yes.
It would?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
on
because-
January the 9th.
All right, okay, because that alleyway of that property is right behind my mother's house, and I have had the city to clean that before. That belongs to the city, and I've had it cleaned before, and it never used to be clean. It never was cleaned until now that he wants to use this property, and I wish you all wouldn't vote for that. Thank you.
She didn't give her name. All right. The call for motion is pending. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the request with an 8-foot fence.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. May we see a show of hands of all of those in favor? Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you for everyone's participation. Now we have citizen comment. Do we have any additional comments from the commissioners or the citizens?
The commissioners. Michael. Let's talk about the UDC.
Okay?
I was very surprised to learn on the 12th and the 10th at a city council presentation a particular time frame that was set forth for this body, and I've yet to hear any correspondence from the city regarding what we're doing. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yes, so that is a timeline that we are shooting for. There's a number of things that have to happen for us to really make that a reality.
Okay.
One of those being turnaround times from us getting it turned around to them, because we have the revision that's published. So we have to provide feedback to Friesen Nichols. They'll have to take that feedback and in turn turn around and get it back to us into a final draft. And so we're shooting for those periods. As soon as we have a better idea, then that's when we'll start calling schedules to see if that will fit within a regularly scheduled meeting or whether it would be a special called meeting.
I believe you mentioned the idea that we would probably have to have a workshop.
Yes.
Is that with the consultants?
Yes. So
Okay.
the first meeting at P&Z will be a workshop to P&Z where the consultant will be here to present it, be able to answer any questions, and then the following meeting would be coming back and asking for consideration for it. So we wouldn't come and present it and ask for consideration at the same meeting. We would want to have an opportunity for some time in between there.
Okay.
2 months?
Well, I mean, it would probably be over weeks.
The 2 points, is staff going to provide copies to us?
We can send it to you. I think we
Has it got the markups in it from the first pass?
have two versions. We have a clean version that is already published on our city website.
Okay.
And then we do have a marked up copy that was sent to the Builders Association on Friday that should be disseminated through
Well,
that.
that's how it showed up, is because, and then, like I say, I saw you on TV and you did a good job with it. I was question because I hadn't gotten anything from
Correct.
the city because this is the body that has to deal with it first.
Yeah, we're not quite to the point to set a day on that, and that's why we've not reached out to y'all. Some of that is really benchmarks for us to work off of as well, because if we
Okay.
don't set timelines, then it's going to be open-ended, and that's not what we're wanting to do. But at the same time, those are benchmarks, and then as we get closer and we see that, yes, we're going to have it ready for then that's when we'll start checking calendars and schedules to see if we can fit it on a regularly scheduled meeting or whether we need to have a special called meeting.
But do you plan to bring the consultants back for the workshop? or not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They'll be the one doing the workshop.
Okay. And the second point is I had a long conversation with the president of the East Texas Builders Association today. And I'm just going to tell you, in case you didn't already know, their position is we're not going to get in a hurry now
Sure.
after we've worked on this for 18 months now. So I think they're still trying to disseminate what was sent out.
Sure.
And that's why I was curious
And
if
I'll
this
just-
group needs to be in that loop because
Sure.
it's coming to us before it goes to council. So we'd like to.
And just so you know, this can bite me. We're not in a hurry either, but we want to have light at the end of the tunnel as well, because we have been working on it longer than 18 months. It's actually 18 months is what it should have been. We've taken longer. We don't want to drag it out, but we're going to take the amount of time that it needs. So, and that's one of the reasons we hadn't set those timelines either, because we want to get feedback from the Builders Association and others, and if they come back and say, we need to push it a little longer, then we can do that. So,
You're comfortable with that?
You're comfortable with that? I mean, just.
no, absolutely, yeah.
we just
I don't
want
want to be rushed to read 500 pages.
No,
and
no.
we don't want-
Well, I think
We're not.
where the that's why I asked you about the marked up copy
Sure.
and whatnot. The various groups that you met with around that are directly involved, the Builder Association, some of the engineers, et cetera, when they came back, they had their, for lack of a better word, their wish list. Okay, and wherever the confusion seems to be right now is what made it into the wish list and
Sure.
what didn't.
And we provided feedback to the Builders Association on that a month or two ago, that I don't think it went line by line, but it had a lot of responses to line items in there about how it was going to be addressed, or comments to the fact.
Okay.
And so, but no, to talk about the timeline, no, our intent is not to rush it.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons we don't and haven't reached out to y'all, because if we say, hey, we are bringing it on January whatever, then
Right.
everybody say, whoa. So it's a goal, but it's not set in stone.
Well, I just want to make sure the other 7 commissioners were aware this was 2020 and this thing is fixing to take some time.
Sure.
Our time, especially. So.
Yeah, we need to prepare too, but it's good prepared. We want
Yeah.
this, as you said at the very beginning.
Yeah, and
The
you know,
pound- we want
and
this
be
right.
aware that the draft that's out there, there are still some questions and things that need to be addressed. There are some things that were not addressed appropriately. So there's some things that will need to be revised, and we're going through from a staff perspective, going through that diligently. It's the first draft that we had was very voluminous, and being kind of a new document, we've gotten to know this thing, and so now we can fine tune it, and that's what we're in the process of fine tuning, and then waiting on that feedback as well.
Right.
So,
Well, I still think we're on the right track. I just don't want to see us get in a hurry at this point.
No,
'Cause we've
we're
got
not. Yeah.
Way too many dollars invested, city dollars, staff dollars, volunteer dollars, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, we want to do it right, but at the same time, we don't want to just not take it serious until one day we look back and we didn't ever finish it, and we're 10 years down the road. That's not we don't want to do that either.
Well, and plus we don't want to approve something that we send to council in May, and then in June we already got mutiny on the bounty
Sure.
because of something that we didn't.
It would be nice night to have our counterpart that's had how many corrections? They did not spend the time
Yeah.
to spend the money wisely to do the job, and now they're just already making it look pretty ugly.
Yeah.
I still say it's a good measured thing to get our battles done before and we've got something that works for our, it's all
It
about
is.
Longview.
And since
They're already
we,
changing.
since we started this process, we've amended our current ordinance a couple of times because there's things that come up that you never anticipate. We're hoping to address a lot of those. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're not ever going to amend it or that it might not be 60 days after we get it that we're not looking at it, but things change. Things that weren't an issue become an issue, and then we have to clarify it. But yeah, we're hoping to not have to do it very quickly and very much as soon as we get it adopted. So
there's five.
I want it better than that.
absolutely, it will
Okay.
be a living document.
All right, any other citizen
And that was our
comments?
staff comment. So
Okay, thank you. So that's citizen comment and staff comment, correct?
Correct.
What did council do?
We didn't have any items going to
So
council,
then they approved it.
so
Good.
yeah, we had a
Okay.
consent last time we were here.
This meeting is adjourned.